Okay, welcome back to our session. Hello, Roberta. So I leave you the speech. Can you hear us? So maybe some difficult. Okay, so I will reintroduce with Ronaldo with another presentation. So we move from, we're always talking about Canada and Quebec, but we're moving from destination management and communication to the concept of terroir because your presentation is entitled Consuming the Terroir, Product Mobility and Tourist Attraction in Gastronomic Destination. Thank you again. So I'll leave you the speech.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Well, I'm gonna give again a bit introduction about myself. Well, I have developed my career around marketing research during almost 15 years. And then I decided to move into the academic work with a master's in environmental science. And in that time, I started to work with food production, trying to understand the relationship or how to create foster responsible consumption. I worked with box schemes in São Paulo. I'm originally from Brazil. And that first research took me to Canada to study this interface between food and tourism. Working with a kind of production that is also part of alternative food networks. I mean, terroir products or local products. And in the end, they could also be a key actor in terms of tourism attraction. And what I'm going to present to you now is the last presentation. I talked about some data and some analysis that I conducted. But this time, my presentation is much more conceptual discussion around gastronomic tourism. So I really invite you to make questions and to pose your opinions and your point of view, because it's going to help me to further develop the discussion in my thesis. I'm going to share my screen. So hope you can see it.
Yes, Ronaldo, we can see it.
Good. So I started my discussion with a discussion around what is terroir, and let's remember that I'm talking about a Canada region, so it's a completely different context compared to the European region. So first, the terroir as a concept emerged from the production of wine and grapes. And it's very related in the very beginning. I'm talking in the end of the 18th century, or sorry, the 19th century. And it's really talking about the climate, the soil, the grape varieties that were used. But more recently, this terminology, this concept, was used to value or to really talk about typical products and products that were some kind of reflection of the region, what considered climate, soil, grape varieties in the case of wine, but also very strongly related to the regional traditions. In this wave, and I'm talking here about the end of the last century, around the 90s, 80s probably, we start to see an explosion in terms of certified products. When I mean certified products, I'm talking about geographic protected designated products. Cheese, olive oil, meat, they are all products that are benefiting from this concept. But the problem is terroir is a concept that is a French, was born in French. Terroir is a word that came from Latin, but is part of the French vocabulary and is very embedded in the French culture. So there's a huge discussion about applying this concept to other parts of the world. Nevertheless, we can nowadays talk about gastronomic terroir. What is different or what is similar across all this usage of the term, the singularity. So when I talk about terroir, I'm always talking about a singularity that is a result of the production of a place and the organization of the society in that place. Here, in the gastronomic terroir, we are discussing the physical assets or the physical context of the land. I talk about climate, soil. I'm also talking about regional tradition, but now I'm talking about systems. I'm talking about the landscape. I'm talking about the dynamics of the food production in that area. No, so the tourism, the gourmand tourism, the gastronomic tourism can also be a product of this terroir. No? That's the way that I'm looking at this concept, and I consider this concept of terroir. So first, it was highly influenced by the European tradition. It is still today. So we can see authors that even deny the usage of terroir in other languages or in other parts of the world. You know? And they are very related to the protection of value and valued food heritage. You know? So this is behind it. We can see the tradition, the community aspect, the pedoclimatic conditions, the protected designation, and single products. That is also something interesting because we are talking usually in the process of institutionalization of a terroir products, we usually talk about single products, you know, like cheese, wine, and whatever. But if we look at the terroir from a gastronomic standpoint, and we can consider that it was driven by the emergence of gastronomic initiatives in places, that food was not usually valued by its food culture. It's a completely different context. So we need to consider tradition, but also there's a lot of innovation in those sites that are using the terroir, are using the local specific conditions to drive a singularity in their productions. We should consider also individual initiatives. They will add something to the community because we are talking about the terroir, but compare it to the scenario that we had in Europe 50, 100 years ago. We are in a much more individual mode, and individuals are driving much more the innovation and the local production. Another important difference are the way that we're certifying this kind of production. We have a lot of other alternative labels. I'm talking about those labels driven by those food travel associations, for instance. And we have a product basket. We are not talking more about single products only, but we also have the possibility to talk about products in association, driving the specificity, the singularity of this region. I proposed here another way to look at this discussion. So, if I consider the physical origin and the cultural orange. And then I can also consider another perspective that was provided or proposed by Sharples and Hall regarding the way that we could segment gastronomic tourism or food tourism. I can place terroir close to the exclusivity that is associated with this segmentation of food tourism. So the gourmet tourism is the tourism that is reserved, or you have few people interested because it's a high expense tourism and very specific, up to the culinary tourism that is just the interest of tourists, visitors to know the food production of the region. No? But terroir is closer to this notion of exclusivity. If the terroir is in the center, I can place in opposition to the terroir the mass products. But if I consider the orange or the physical orange and the cultural orange, I can also place two different spaces in this graph, in this figure. No, I mean, in the top left, the sites that are unique, or there are only one site or monocytes, and on the bottom right, I can talk about spaces that concentrates multiple locals. No, they are really cosmopolitan. In this case, I'm talking about when I have a monosite or a single region. I'm talking about much more about agritourism and farm visits, because those would be the ones that are more identified physically with the space, and they don't need to have a clear cultural origin to present to visitors. In the opposition, I'm going to talk about the urban tourism, the gastronomic cities that concentrates not only the production or the cultural heritage, food heritage of the regions around the city, but also the heritage that comes from the world heritage, I would say. No, an example is New York, for instance, where you can consume food from everywhere in the world. Would be an example of a city that has reached everybody, every word, every kind of food. And then I highlight, this is the orange area is the area that I consider to be the area of development for food tourism initiatives. But then, what are the values that are driving consumers to choose a gastronomic experience, to get involved in a gastronomic experience? Again, I come back to the territory, to the action that this society is interacting with the territory to generate a terroir, the products that are coming out of this terroir, the products that will also influence the local gastronomy, that in the end of the day is the tourism, is the attraction that in the center of the tourism, the food tourism. This gastronomy and those products will both drive values if they are consumed in place, I mean, in the visit to the local production, but they will also drive values when they are out of place. They are consumed in the cities, or when they are distanced from their production places, when they are consumed in the day-to-day routine of people. So those values that are only obtained in place will drive visitors to the region. These values are also obtained or influencing residents in the region. And those values that are driving consumption out of the production place are the ones that will drive consumers to buy terroir products in the cities. Eventually, those consumers will also become tourists because they will be interested in knowing those production places. You know? So the combination of the interest of visitors and residents will in the end make the gastronomic destination, and that gastronomic destination will back influence society and restart the cycle. So it's important to understand which are the values that are driving or fostering this destination attraction. I mean, which are the roles can be played by those terroir products in the tourist attraction? So people will come to visit those sites, but it's also important to understand how those products are attracting consumers and get the region noticed by city people. So my objective with this research is to understand how the destination attractiveness is linked to its terroir products and their consumption place from a consumer's perspective. What I'm doing, and as I told you, this is a very conceptual presentation because we are still collecting the data from this survey. We have an online questionnaire that lasts about 15 minutes to be answered. The population framework, we are in partnership with destination marketing organizations to understand or to collect the answers. This is a convenience sampling. The consumers will they will choose whether to participate or not. They will be incentivized by those destinations organizations, but it's still a convenience sampling. We expect to get 300 respondents by region at least, and we're gonna analyze the data using multivariate analysis, cluster analysis, and factor analysis. This is the initial model proposed. So I have the destination attractivity as a dependent variable. We have 3 key blocks of questions that were proposed based on the analysis of local websites and the literature. And they try to personalize the concept of the relationship between the terroir and the territory, the values and how they vary according to the distance or to the local of production, and the relationship between consumer and the terroir. Those are the independent variables. I have 2 control variables proposed by the literature as well: the children presence and the lifestyle, to guarantee that I'm gonna be biased by the people that were going to be responding the question. What do I have in those key question blocks? Basically, when I talk about linking terroir and territory, I have this kind of questions. No? So it's an agreement scale to what is the relationship between the terroir and the territory. So in this case, the example, I'm talking about the breeds that are raised in the region. I have a frequency scale to understand some habits in terms of terroir consumption in place. And finally, I try to understand what is the optimal distance to have a certain characteristic of the product. You know, this last battery, I mean, in terms of values according to the distance to a local production, I'm very specific in terms of products. I ask consumers to nominate a product and then answer the question regarding this product, to be sure that they are analyzing something very concrete from for them. Some initial indicators. So this research is on field. Actually, we had some problems to go on with them. In terms of partnership, the partners are not as quick as I would like them to be to spread the invitation to answer the questionnaire. So we have a few questions answered right now. But we can, at least with the answers that we have already, that are at least 29, I mean, in the destination attractivity, we can see that there is a good standard deviation. So it's a good indicator that I'm going to have the possibility to understand this relationship between those attributes and the destination attractivity. You know? But of course, I need to go on and to run further analysis, statistical analysis, to really confirm that I'm in the right direction. So which are the products that which are the values that we are discussing with the consumers in this survey? I grouped them in 4 blocks. First, some objective values. It was interesting to see from the Andreas presentations earlier today, some interest from visitors to go to food attractions, no tourism attractions. But in this case, objective values talks much more about quality, price, appearance, things that can be easily measured. And then I have another group that I consider values that emerge from the consumer-producer interaction. So pleasure, authenticity, notoriety, exclusiveness. It's interesting here to say that I saw a lot these 2 days. I heard a lot about the importance of the human connection, that I'm not sure if it's something that is going to stand after the pandemic, but I believe, as in other crises that we had in the food industry, they will change for sure. They will change consumer behavior, and I believe in the case of pandemic, this link, the human link, will be much stronger from now on. I have another block that talks about selfish values. So those values that are related to myself, and another block in opposition to this of altruistic values, that are those values that talks about social support, environmental concerns, and things like that. Some limits of my research and my final considerations here. The discussion around the roles played by terroir products can trigger differentiated marketing strategies in place and in the promotion of destinations. I do believe that we can have a lot of insights analyzing how those terroir products can add value to the destination and get value out of the destination. We are not analyzing specifically the consumer experience of those products, the consumption experience of those products. I mean, we are really talking about an opposition between local production, usually in rural areas, against consumption at home. We have a risk to be biased in our sampling method to the internal validation of this survey. And finally, I think this is just an initial step of something that could be confirmed in other geographies to be really validated externally. This is all. Thank you very much. Thank you for hearing me. And I'll be very glad to discuss.
Thank you very much, Ronaldo, for your presentation. It has been very exhaustive, and of course, it is very interesting. And I think that results may be valuable because, in my opinion, I've always heard about terroir applied to wine production, and investigating its role for tourism attractiveness. I think that it is a new and different perspective. Oh, we have one question, the same to the previous one,
Yeah.
that our one of our attendee would like to receive your presentation, but of course.
Yeah, I believe that in the I will give you the same answers I gave to Andrea earlier. I have no problem to share the presentations, but I need to include my directions in the presentation and also some references, especially in this last presentation that is very conceptual. Good. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Eric, for sharing my contact.
Perfect. We'll solve these things. Okay, so few minutes before 5 o'clock in Italy, I know that 4 o'clock in London, we have different timing. I think that also in Canada, if you are in Canada, is it right, Ronaldo? No.
Yes, it's 11 a.m.
Yeah,
right now.
different timing everywhere. So thank you very much for being here with us, Ronaldo. And I wish you, I hope that you can go on with this, the data collection, because as you said, maybe you are finding some troubles, but I hope that you can also conclude this study. And thank you very much. See you in a couple of minutes for the next session. Bye.
Thank you, Andrea. Bye. Thank you, everyone.